Hey, it's Zim, and should you play Roguebook? Now, this game is designed by the people who brought you Faeria and Richard Garfield, the designer of Magic the Gathering. When I first heard about this game, I was super excited for it. I thought this would be a super cool game. It's very much in the Slay the Spire vein, deck building. It's got a couple unique mechanics, kind of very set in the Faeria world. There's a lot of love and detail that's gone into the Faeria world itself, but when it comes to gameplay, I've actually kind of felt let down. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and jump into a run, and I'll show you what I mean. And here we are at the main screen. As you can tell, we are in a storybook. We are presented with our three main characters. There is a fourth character, but getting him can be a little bit random, and I've yet to unlock. Each of these characters has a different play style. I feel like those play styles are probably something you've seen before in a lot of these characters. Not very innovative in terms of that, but they did do some innovation in terms of the gameplay. A lot of what they've changed, though, is how you're going to traverse the world. This is the roguelike mechanic where you spend pages. You unlock pages throughout your runs. These will unlock specific bonuses for characters or for the run itself, like including finding bonus gemstones on each chapter map or giving characters specific amounts of health. So it's a neat feature, but it's just going to give you minor benefits as you play. Then once you're ready, you only get to bring two characters with you, which is kind of one of the unique things. Instead of being one character, you get to be two. You'll go up to this gate, and we'll unlock it. Now, once you beat one run, you're actually presented with the epilogue. This epilogue will allow you to add additional difficulties or features, and to unlock further ones, you just have to defeat the previous one. This is essentially kind of your increasing difficulty system. Now, this game is story-driven on the fact that you are all trapped in this storybook and trying to escape. Once you beat the third chapter, there's nothing. It just kicks you back to the main screen, and it's very anticlimactic, and I don't understand why there isn't even like even a page like, oh, your story continues or you're still trapped. No, it just kicks you back to the beginning of the screen, and then it kind of picks up once you come here, and he kind of explains how the epilogue is, and he's like, well, just keep trying. It's kind of a letdown, if I have to say anything. I feel like they set it up to be more story-driven, and then just kind of decided that they didn't care anymore. At least that's been my feeling for this. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and pick fairy hunting. Why not? And jump right in. As you can see, the art is beautiful for this game. It kind of went by quickly, but I'll show you. And we get to see our world build. They only do this for the first chapter as well. I feel like there's been a ton of attention to detail in the first chapter, and then we kind of start to see less and less attention in the second and third chapters. That includes enemy scaling. I feel like enemy scaling is radically changed in 2 and then into 3. And then with the final bosses, we have Avatar of Greed here. There's two. It's Avatar of Greed and Avatar of Mist, I think it's called. They both suffer from bugs. They're just bugged in certain ways that can ruin runs, and that sucks. And I feel like there should have been maybe more playtesting done for the third chapter, because I feel like that one definitely has the worst scaling of them all. Obviously, the game's supposed to get more difficult as you progress the chapters, but I find that there oftentimes are enemies that I don't want to do any of the fights in 3, and I'll just walk around them to get to the final boss because it's just not worth it. Go ahead and start showing you the map here. These are crates, vaults of wisdom as they're called. They normally cost you 25, but the modifier I currently have is obviously raised the cost for them. And what do they do? Well, you pop one open, and you get to choose one card to add to your deck. Now, you have no control over what cards it'll offer you, so just keep that in mind. Allies, I feel, are extremely overpowered in this game. I feel like all of my best runs have always been with allies. They just seem to be the best way to build. Now, I'm not saying it's the only way to build. I'm sure there are definitely some very viable builds without them, but I feel like the easiest way to go is often with these allies, obviously, because aggressive allies will continually attack at the end of every turn, so it's just always passive damage, which is always good. I don't want any of these cards, though. It's kind of a bummer. As you can see, we can walk around the map. We also have what's called ink and our brush. And as you can see, if we walk up here, we can reveal more tiles to create pathways. Notice shaded spots on this map, kind of here, here, and here. Those usually indicate that the terrain is being blocked by forest or mountain or whatever kind of fits the theme of the chapter you're in. Just probably means that you're not going to be able to walk through it, so be careful with that. You don't want to reveal a tile that's probably going to be blocked. But we're going to jump into this fight here, and I'll show you what it's about. Alrighty. This is our first fight. As you can see, we're on the left, and our enemies are on the right. Now, the big mechanic here is that they introduced to innovate on this, which ultimately just doesn't really add anything, you'll find out, is the positioning. So whoever's in the front is going to be the one who takes the damage. Enemies will always attack your front character, and whoever has block, whoever puts up block, will be moved to the front. Now, one of the things that wasn't explained great is that block isn't attached to a specific character, it's just a cumulative. So every time you add block, even if it's with different characters, it's all going together in one, whoever ends up at front. And I'll show you a little bit later about how that looks, because I don't have a block for her yet. You'll also notice on this card there's a swirl in the upper left-hand corner around the card's cost. That means this card will move this character forward. As you can see, charge, swap this here to the front. Over to the left here is our draw pile, the number of cards in our deck, but this big number here is how much energy we have to spend on our cards, just like you would in Slay the Spire. Of course, we can target who we want here, so we might want to bring down this archer. And since we can kill him and he's going to block, we're just going to not worry about defense at all. Positioning can matter also with character effects. In this case, she wants to be in the lead to gain bonus damage, and he wants to be in the lead to gain bonus block at the end of the turn. And so we have a card that says ranged. There's two types of keywords, ranged and melee. Also works with positioning. Ranged means you're in the back line, which means this will cost one less. Melee wants you in the front line and will cost one less as well. However, we have no way to switch them. Now that's kind of the puzzle piece that you're trying to solve for characters that constantly want to switch back and forth. The third character, the wolf, often does a lot of switching with his abilities, but doesn't gain a benefit for it. So you kind of want to work with him a lot to move your characters around and get the benefits for it. Courage gives energy at the start of your turn, so it's always a good thing to have. And as you can see, we take some damage here, then our deck shuffles and we start again. Each hero has different health. If one hero drops, they are not dead, but will add wounds to your deck as long as you survive the fight. You can also resurrect them at minimum health, and what happens is all their cards turn into resurrection cards, but it takes 5 at first and then increases every time they drop. Now, most of the time, if a character drops, you are probably going to be dead. It usually means that your other characters are not going to last much longer, and especially based on how you can build characters. But doesn't necessarily mean that for sure. I've definitely won rounds where one of my characters dropped. I resurrected them so that they could block more damage from a big attack from one of the bosses, and then finished that boss off with damage. There you go. That's a combat for you. Now you get rewards. So gold, and in this case, ink. You can hold up to 3 consumable items. Now, if I had got another ink that does the same thing, they will stack. You also can gain health and things like that. And we'll move forward on this map and show you. This is Runes of Sight. It will randomly reveal something on the map. Now, there's a slight bug where it will trigger the rune and then jump back to your character before it shows you what they revealed, which is super frustrating, and I hope that gets fixed. In this case, we didn't see it, but it will happen in your games. Just know that it did reveal, but it just didn't show you. You can move your camera around the map just to see where you're at, although there is no easy way to get back to where your characters are at, because if you press space, for example, that'll just cause you to use your brush, which you may not want to do, especially here because there's a ton of blocking terrain. Kind of an awkward angle for us. Those towers reveal in a certain radius around them. There are things that can increase that radius. One of the things you'll also note as you're playing, which can be super frustrating, is that you can step on tiles to pick up something. Usually it's with the health potions. And then it won't pick it up, and it's just not interacting correctly, and it's super frustrating because you'll have to essentially try to run into the tile behind it to make them pick it up. Once again, it's just like these minor things that I feel like should have been finished, because this isn't an early access game, it's a full release, and just it has some weird things. These are golden fairies. They're gold pinatas essentially. These will get tougher as you progress in the chapters, and by tougher I mean they're just going to be more resistant to your damage, but really all you're going to try to do is wail on them. Alright, and that's the gold pinata dead. Currently my bonus is that I have a ton more of these on my map, but things cost more. That's kind of the modifier that I've chosen to add to it. As we can see, there's an artifact over here. Now, there are different types of artifacts, some that are specific to heroes, like this one over here, the Ogre Cleaver. And then there are some that are just for party-wide. It's nice that I can see it, see if I want to go for it or not, but it's probably worth going for. But what will happen is obviously I'm burning ink, trying to get that done. I'm going to give it to her. And, man, it really wants me this Windstorm Colossus. We'll take Shield Dash. So there are 2 types of mobs, basics and elites. I often find that elites can tend to be harder than the bosses of the chapter, which is weird. They will give you better rewards than your normal fights. I often don't think they're worth it compared to the hassle you have to deal with. So that's just something to keep in mind. But we're going to go ahead and jump into the boss because it shouldn't be too tough. And I'll show you what that looks like. These bosses are all random based on the chapter. I believe there are 3 bosses for Chapter 1, 3 bosses for Chapter 2, and 2 bosses for Chapter 3. We'll get into that a little bit later, why and my problem with that. But the first chapter also will have a unique boss on your first playthrough, so just keep that in mind as well. There's different effects for each enemy. This is a great example of the Slay the Spire, where it tells you what the enemy is going to do, but not necessarily everything it's going to do. So obviously it's going to debuff me, but I have no clue what that debuff is until I've obviously gone against this boss a couple times before. They also share a health total. That's actually bugged. If you put bleed on any of these characters, their health total will drop faster than the other ones because the bleed damage for some reason isn't being shared. And so you'll end up with dead characters on the Tiki Pelicans. And so then the game kind of just acts like they're still there. It's super weird. Unfortunately, we have no blocks. This is a big problem with just the genre in general, which is sometimes you get screwed by your card draw, and we just have to deal with that. Alright, so it's the boss defeated there. Now, with every chapter boss, you'll also get rewards. Every reward that's consistent is the Vial of Rejuvenation. This will fully heal all your characters and also clear all wounds. So even if your character drops and dies and adds wounds to your decks, they'll be back up and fresh for the next chapter. It's kind of nice, but it also definitely makes things a little bit easier, though I have no problems with that based on the scaling issues that I have with this game. We also get to choose a treasure here. We'll take the chalice, why not? So we'll always allow you to choose one, and we'll go over the gem system as well. And then it resets your brushes. Now you'll also notice once we add so many cards, we unlock perks all the way up to 30. These are always random and will change based on not only the characters in your group, but also just randomly. So like momentum won't always be available to you next time you play with Shara. It might be something completely different. It just is meant to keep things fresh, but there are definitely better ones than others. So this makes allies cost one less, which can be nuts. Allies I tend to think are just very overpowered in this game. It's probably the best strategy to go with, especially if you're using the other character. Every one of my best runs has had allies, so that's really insane. Whenever you swap, she gains a power that turn. It's pretty decent. Soraka has +1 max life for each card in your deck is also really good, so we'll take that. You only get to choose one, though, so keep that in mind. Then we'll look at this. So all cards have gem slots. Some have more than others, and then you can also eventually find people who can add gem slots. These gems will give it a certain benefit. So in this case, this will add 7 block to a card, which is pretty sweet. And then you hit craft, and there you go. This card is now upgraded with that. Once it's upgraded, it's permanently like that for this run. Obviously, they do not carry over between runs, and then we can carry on through the next chapter. And once again, you're presented with this map, but notice that they don't give you the grand trail to the boss like they do with the first one. Like I said, there's a lot of polish and things that they did with the first chapter that they just don't kind of follow through with in the second. You can always talk to him. He's your merchant as well, taking gold for either gems, cards, or artifacts. These can be very useful, but it just depends on your gold level, because you tend to want to take the crates because there's a chance that you'll get something better for cheaper, right? Ooh, I think we'll take Sucker Punch. And perfect. This will actually show you something else you can encounter in the story, which are narratives. Narratives are essentially random events that you can uncover on the map. So as you can see, we have a random event with a giant yak or a ram. And we can choose one of two things. If you hover over it, it'll tell you what to do. We can either heal 20 life each, obviously not needed because we just started, or we can gain the rainbow gem. But, as we can see, it's going to cause a fight. So these narratives have multiple different things. This is also how you can unlock the 4th character, though it is, once again, random. At the end of the turn, it's going to give all yaks plus 8 block and 4 power, so we don't want that, so we're going to have to be constantly managing these yaks as well. That's an ally, by the way. Allies are, like I said, very strong in this game. Aggressive allies will attack at the end of your turn. They don't tell you this anywhere, but there is a cap to how many allies you can have in play, and you won't realize it until you reach that cap, which can be frustrating, but it's 6. You can have 6 allies in play at one time. I wish that they would explain that better, but they're, like I said, the tutorials here are decent, but they don't go over everything that might be pertinent to you as you're playing. I haven't really been exploring much. Normally you want to explore a lot to just get stronger and make your deck better. Obviously for this review I've just kind of been going over things quickly, but I'm actually going to end it here too and just jump back to the main menu. As you can see, there's also progression with characters to unlock more cards. I've said this across many reviews. I don't like this system where there are certain really good cards or interesting cards locked behind a time-gated window for no reason, especially because you already have that roguelike perk tree with the pages. I don't feel like the game needs to have more roguelike stuff that just locks more content behind it. But that's just my personal feeling on that one. And as you can see, we can see the hero progressions. As you can see, he's probably my most played hero. He's the one I enjoy the most, the wolf. This is your embellishments, which is the other roguelike system. You can also spend stuff here if you'd like, instead of at the start of a run. And then Compendium will show you the different cards for all your characters, as well as artifacts and things that you've encountered, like gems. So obviously we don't have access to these 3 gems because we have to reach levels with our party, which is just time-gated shenanigans. And it's the same with cards. I don't see the point to it, but that's just me. Now, this game is on Steam for $24.99. However, that's not the only thing available. This game launched on day 1 with DLC, both cosmetic, which, I mean, cosmetic DLC people will always have different opinions on, but I generally don't care. It's a way to support the game company. If you want, that's great. For $4.99 you can get some just different costumes for your characters. That's fine. But there is also an expansion for $7.99 that unlocks more cards, treasures, and an additional boss for Chapter 3. Now, like I said, Chapter 2 is the only boss, Chapter 3 is the only boss with the only chapter with 2 bosses. They have a third one, but they decided to split it up behind a paywall, and I'm not okay with that. It's always just a bad look when you launch your game with DLC, especially because if we're considering all things, this game's going to cost you, what, $32.99, $33? If you want the entire experience right from the get-go, and that's already way more expensive than its competitors. Like I said, this game also still has some bugs, and it's not an early access, it's an official release. And I feel like there's also some scaling problems with this game. So compared to its competitors, I would say go play Slay the Spire or Monster Train over this one. And sure, Monster Train came out with a DLC. I'm not against these games having paid for DLC when it comes out later and there's sizable content. But like I said, for $7.99, they're going to give you, a handful of cards, 5 or 10 cards, plus some artifact treasures, and a boss that should have been in the game already. That just feels really kind of bad. So should you play Roguebook? I think if you've played Slay the Spire to death, I think if you really enjoy these genres, you'll enjoy this game. I do just have that hesitation and worry that this game is going to try to nickel and dime their audience every step of the way, and I do worry that the game will continue to stay unbalanced and still have some very vicious bugs with the last bosses that need to be ironed out still. So I'd say if you're interested in this game, keep an eye out on it. Maybe wait for it to have a couple patches first before picking it up, because it definitely does need some like just bug fixes, and then pick it up. But also know that there's a warning with me on this one, which is I feel like they might nickel and dime their audience with these like micro expansions where they add 5 cards to everything and then charge you $8 for it, which I'm definitely not okay with. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments below if you've played this game, what you feel they did well with it and what you wish they could have done more with. Like I said, I was kind of disappointed. I wish there was more innovation in the genre, especially coming from the designers of Faeria and Magic the Gathering. Also, let me know how you feel about the DLC coming out day 1 with it and where you stand on that. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out a lot. And thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later.